cxocommunity. cxocommunity.
Hi everyone again, my name is Vecchi. I oversee global product marketing for Checkpoint. But don't be too frightened because marketing is in my title. Although I love to stand up here and tell you all about the great things we do from a marketing perspective. I'm actually going to step back and talk a little bit about technology and some trends. And I want to try to present this so that as you go through this conference and you hear about the solutions we have, you can kind of look at that through the prism of kind of what I'm going to present here relative to real trends, real statistics, things that are really happening and shaping this industry. I spend about half of my time lately, in addition to product marketing, traveling around the globe, all continents of the world, speaking to customers and partners like you, working with analysts who I've been working with for a long time, speaking with technologists, all around, and a lot of C-level executives. I spend a lot of time speaking with IT leaders at the C-level about some of the things I'm going to talk about here. So, I'm going to talk about a few trends. If I can see which answers my slides here. So I'm going to cover about 9 trends. I hope my clicker works, otherwise I'll grab another, because I'm allergic to podiums, if you can probably know already. So I'm going to cover about 9 or so trends. Just a note on the trends I'm going to cover. They're in no particular order. Most of these are things you're facing today. They're things that you're dealing with. Many of them may be leading things. Many of them may not. So there's no particular order. The thing about trends is that they're not serial in nature. I'm going to present these 1 through 9 or so, but they're not serial in nature. They are all interconnected. One thing leads to another, one thing drives another, one's connected to another. All of these are very relative to each other, so they're in no particular order, but I'm going to cover about 9 of them. Let's try this. Here we go. That seems to work. No? All right. So, all of the things I'm going to present here are not my numbers. I'm certainly going to add some of my thoughts on this. I've been following technology, and I really like to follow this as it shapes the industry we're in. And it matters, because as you look at your security partner and what they're doing for you, we need to look at things like this and see how are we doing. How are the partners we have helping us with these things? Because a lot of these, no matter where I go, whether I'm in China, Central South America, Australia, Europe, North America, these are all the same. All of you, most everyone I talk to, are struggling with all of these issues. But all of the statistics here are not mine, but others. The statistics you see here are from top analysts, top kinds of polls that have been long-standing around the world. So let's start with cloud and virtualization. How could we not start here? As I talk about these, there are 3 of these trends which I call board-level issues. What do I mean by board-level issues? Exactly that. These are actually trends and technologies and issues that are being discussed in the boardroom, at the board level, at the executive level of most companies that have a board or an executive team. Why? Because they're front-facing, they're shaping everything that's happening with the business. They are driving the business. They are influencing it in positive ways. They are driving revenue. They are driving cost reduction and efficiencies. And this is certainly one of them, right? So as we look at cloud, what we see is nearly a third of organizations today have some kind of initiative to build a private cloud. Either they've already funded it or have started it. When we ask C-level executives, what are you going to do in 2011? You can see 30% plan to build one if they haven't already. It's an incredible number. Of course, virtualization is already happening even before we start building public clouds, private clouds within the organization. And you can see when we ask them, what are you going to virtualize in your production environment today? 55% of that will be virtualized in 2011, already up well over 40% from the year before. This is incredibly explosive, and we know this, right? So data centers are getting virtualized, your server environments are getting virtualized. And this matters because, again, it's helping create efficiencies and cost reduction and all the things virtualization does. But when you think about virtualizing in cloud, if this is relevant to the business, the reason it's being discussed in the boardroom is the IT services that IT teams are delivering are getting delivered on these platforms. I like to say IT teams have moved in the past few years from a model of delivering servers to a model of delivering services, right? When I talk about IT consumerization coming up, we'll see how that comes into the flow. All those services are getting access. But this is very, very explosive. Still not working. Now, when I look at trends myself, I think the interesting thing to look at is what does it matter? How does it impact all of you? So what's interesting, we know it's an explosive trend, virtualization in cloud. But let's ask, what are the biggest challenges? This is when we begin to see how it affects all of you. And now we can start to think what we need from security, what we need from our security partners. So you see here, the biggest, this is very leading edge technology by John Olsek of ESG and the ESG group team. Great team, and they've done extensive research on virtualization. Interesting, when they asked what is the biggest challenge, you can see number one, lack of security, lack of knowledge on the security teams. It's very interesting because oftentimes we would think perhaps it's not lack of knowledge, but maybe a technology, the technology is not ready. No, not with virtualization. The technology is long ready. It's absolutely mature. At the end of the day, most executives and teams I talk with will tell you that they can't move fast enough. So that 55% number I showed before, most organizations say, oh, shit was 90%. But I can't move that fast because my teams lack the skill set to move that fast. This is difficult stuff. If you see what other things follow, lack of security skills, you see cost, right? And the security tool, porting those, and then you see some big ones like virtualization, regulatory compliance, and best practices. You'll see these themes come up multiple times here as I go through a lot of these trends. Regulatory compliance, best practices. This stuff is difficult. Virtualizing is not easy. And what we see is most companies have only a few people that are really knowledgeable about this, and the others are coming up to speed, which means they can't quite move that fast. When you do virtualize, you need to pay attention to best practices in regulatory compliance. I hope you do anyway. And so this is why oftentimes that comes out on top as one of the biggest security challenges. So I always say, I tell our teams and customers, look, relative to your security partners, they must be consultative. Your partners must be consultative to you around this stuff. And we must never assume that you all have all the answers to this. Because this is moving very fast and it's difficult stuff. And so relative to security, we must be consultative within that and make sure that we can answer the question as to how we do security. Private cloud, what are the concerns there? Number one on the list, loss of control. At the same time, however, companies are building private clouds because they want more control. And you get more control with the private cloud. But loss of control is still on top. When you build a cloud, it's somewhat ethereal. Where does everything go? Control issue is big, so it's number one on top. And then you see following things. What comes up next? Data. Data security. Where is my data? Portability and ownership of that, because this suddenly becomes the focal point when we start building cloud infrastructures, right? We want private clouds because there's more control. We want to have more control over the data there, but at the same time, boy, it is difficult because it moves into the cloud infrastructure, but now it's difficult to keep track of that data. And then we see some of these other ones come up again. Regulatory compliance, reliability, best practices will come up as we go down the line. So these are some of the big driving issues we see within private clouds and virtualization. Now let's move to IT consumerization. This is another board level issue. This is perhaps the biggest issue, right, that it gets discussed, and I get asked everywhere I go in the world. This is perhaps one of the biggest, right? And when we think about why this is a board level issue, let's think about how that conversation goes, right, in the boardroom. So the CEO sits with his team, and he or she asks the question, so sales leader, right? Are our field teams and your guys out there in the field using these devices to stay in touch, to build relationships, to collaborate, to make connections, to drive what they're doing at the end of the day, to do what any CEO today wants to have happen, drive revenue? And the answer all the way around is yes, right? You could go down the line and ask every other team, are you guys using these? Are you IT, the services you're delivering, are they getting access on this device? Right? Are they using this? Yes, 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 yes. So it's very simple for any IT leader to simply turn to the team and say, great, then IT team, make sure you turn this on. Right? Everybody has to have this. Make sure you don't turn it off. And this is driving the business, so you turn it on. And this is a classic paradox issue, right? Because on one hand, we need to turn it on another, this is not safe. There are concerns about turning these on, right? So this is a huge one. And to make matters more complicated, all of these devices are not managed by the company, right? So the devices are consumerized. On these devices are accessing all of the applications, many of them social applications. We'll talk about Web 2.0 applications as well. But they're using all of these applications, they're connecting on devices that are not managed by the company. Boy, that is a combination of a very difficult strategic issue to solve, right? And let's look at some of the statistics, right? 30%, these are mostly Gartner numbers here. Gartner follows the adoption of things like tablets and iPads in the enterprise. You see this statistic here? 30% is enterprises implementing iPads within their organization, operationalizing these, delivering these to their users. This is an incredible number because in most cases we would always see small business as the ones adopting this kind of technology. But if you look at this percentage with small, medium businesses, it's half as big. Right? Enterprises are adopting this stuff. And think about it. It's only been, about a year and a half since iPad even came out? And now we're seeing enterprises adopted by 30%. This is unbelievable. And the number of devices, that's an IDC number. When IDC did a poll and asked the number of average devices that a user uses for work that are their own personal devices, 4. Right? 4 devices. That is a lot, right? So when you think of the different phones they're using, tablets and iPads, laptops and MacBooks, it easily adds up. So this isn't just like we need to control and manage and turn on one device per user. We're turning on multiple devices per user. And so we look at how big is the usage of smartphones and the adoption of that in the enterprises today, and we say by 2013, how big will it grow? 100%. Right? 100%. So those 4 devices, maybe not all of them today are being used for work. If 2 of them are, by 2013, all 4 will be. That number is just exploding as if it's not big enough already. This is how big it's growing. When I think about IT consumerization, I always like to think, let's go back maybe 2 to 4 years and think about, the finance or number cruncher person that used to be sitting in the cube in the back, doing numbers all day, entering numbers or doing finance data. And that was like the most classic case for an anchor desktop you could ever find, right? That person in the queue. They didn't travel, they sat there and did finance numbers or did numbers, all day. And now you fast forward to today and that person leaves their cube and walks out of the organization. What do they have in their bag and in their jacket or what have you, right? They got an iPhone, they probably have a couple, right? They have a laptop, they're not anchored anymore, they're completely mobile. So this is what it's like. Everyone has gone mobile today. Not just the road warriors in the past, but everybody. And it's because we are now 100% saturated for mobile today. 100%, right? The days of anchor desktops are going down. Now, today I'm going to be presenting some lessons learned at WikiLeaks, and we need to remember those anchor desktops, although there are fewer and fewer of them, we need to make sure they're secure. But anchor desktops are going to be the thing of the past. Everyone is mobile. It's now 100% mobile today. So this is why this is such an explosive trend, right? It's certainly the biggest one that comes up anywhere you go in the world, the number top of mind issue. But this one is a big one as well, very dear to my heart. Consolidation and complexity, right? This is where we start to look at these trends and start to look at the evolution of this industry we're in and the IT environment we're in, and we start to have to see why we see consolidation, why all of you demand that your security solutions do more, fewer pieces of technology, fewer hardware devices, fewer management consoles, and it's because complexity has gone mad, right? So this is one we ask time and time again, and I've been following these polls for years, especially this one by Information Week that they've been conducting for a long time. But every time we ask all of you C-level leaders, what's the biggest security challenge? Managing the complexity of security, right? I don't know about you, but that's why I keep seeing that number one on the list year after year. It's just unbelievable, right? You think that the number one challenge would be protect me from data breach, protect me from a targeted attack, as Bill was talking about, protect me against the latest threats. I don't know. But no, number one is managing the complexity of security. And it's a challenge because it's crazy, right? It's madness with all the point products we have and the way that this has evolved. And it's got to change, and it is changing. Then you see what's next, enforcing security policies, right? Preventing data breaches. Down below that, if I'm going to show it, regulatory compliance. And you just say, well, of course. I mean, it's pretty tough to do all of those things when we have this complex environment, right? And I summarize this complex environment in a couple key ways. One thing we've done is deploy what I call the most beautiful white picket fence of security you've ever seen, right? It's a picket fence, and it's white and it's long, right? And each one of those pickets is another point product. But yet you look at that picket fence, there's gaping holes between every picket. It's disparate, it's not seamless, it's not connected, right? And this is one of the problems we have, right? The other thing is that picket fence tends to be deployed around the perimeter, right? So we have this model today where all of the security is the M&M model, right? It's all around the perimeter, that nice crunchy hard coating around the outside. And on the inside, we say, well, we trust people. If you're in the network and you're in the LAN, you've already come in, you're trusted. So that the mushy, soft center tends to be the way we deploy it. It can't be that way anymore. Can it? I mean, we need security now through everything. If you've ever needed it in the internal and the core, and that mushy center, you need it today. And it's pretty hard to do that when we built this model, right? And how did we get here? Well, we got here because, on one hand, a lot of security vendors over many, many years love to deliver and sell more point products, right? At the same time, we actually had analysts and technologists a few years ago suggesting and telling you all you shouldn't put all your security in one basket. Split it up. No, it's better to have it, multi-layer with different vendors. We're certainly not saying that anymore. I mean, I speak with analysts all the time, and I've never had one in the past few years say, make sure you deliver disparate solutions that are split up. No, it's all about unification, but it used to be that way. And then we had the knee-jerk reactions of another threat means deploy another product. Remember spyware? We had spyware emerge, and the next thing you know, I woke up and there were 25 new security companies all selling spyware and everyone deploying spyware solutions. So these kinds of things have come together to really create this complex environment. So this is your world today. This is conservative, right? This is showing the network. Average number of point products most companies have, 14 on the network alone. And in many cases, far more, right? And then if you add endpoint, doubles. Endpoint's a classic propagator. I mean, it's incredible. And we've seen now finally endpoint start to unify. But I mean, the number of point products on the endpoint is crazy. I was meeting with the COO of one of the top largest banks in the world, and I was in that meeting with him talking about these issues, and he actually said, you know what? Today I got a call from my endpoint security team, and they told me, hey, today we just deployed successfully the 14th endpoint product that's doing the same thing as the other 13. But it was successful and it was the 14th one. And I mean, he just looked at me with this incredulous look, just saying, you know, see what I mean? I don't even have a response. I don't even know what to do other than to tell him, I hope by the time you get to the 20th one, you figure it out. And we can actually do away with that. The point on that is that not only do we have point products for individual things, we have multiple point products doing the same thing. Right? This is madness. This is crazy. This has to stop. And I've been waiting for convergence. All of us have for a long, long time, and it's finally here. We're hearing about things like next generation firewall. Fantastic. Absolutely. We are a leader in that. I will tell you, you give me 2 minutes, why no one can touch us on that. And it's great to see that happen, but we need to converge more than the network. We need to converge everything. Everything from the network to the data, to the applications, to the mobile, to the endpoints, and everything. The virtual environments, everything needs to be unified. And this is when we start to see separation in the security landscape. Right? Who can unify that today? And I'll tell you, there's no one that can other than the company I'm standing here working for. I truly believe that, know that. Unifying stuff is tough. Not selling you a point product that's disparate than another. Tough stuff, right? That takes a different kind of security company, not one that is simply bought and acquired all these solutions from other companies and they can't deploy them and unify them together. But we need to start doing that. It's the holy grail of security, I call it. The ability to actually show you solutions that are unified to start eliminating this complexity. So we can start doing compliance and best practices better, so we can start closing the gaps on that picket fence, right? And doing all these things better, right? Now, here's another one. This is the third of what I call the 3 board level issues. Web 2.0 and social media. Huge, right? This is one of those other massive board level issues. And the conversation in the board is very similar to the one that I talked about with IT consumerization, isn't it? Right? So the CEO again looks to his team and let's see, he looks at the marketing leader and says, marketing leader, are you guys using social applications like YouTube, LinkedIn, Twitter, all these things to extend our brand and our awareness and allow you to market our company? Yes, absolutely we are. And sales leader, are you guys using these applications to stay connected, to collaborate, to build new relationships, to drive all the things that they need to do every day to drive new opportunities in their business? Yes. Right down the line, yes, 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 yes. So again, it's easy for the CEO leader to look at the IT team and say, great, so guys, make sure everyone has access to all these applications, right? Turn them all on, right? It's very simple to turn them on, but it's another paradox issue. Yes, we need to turn them on, but we're concerned, right? And so you guys have to go and figure out how to do that. If we ever thought we were going to control these, those days are gone. So Facebook is already as big as the third largest country. Twitter is following right behind. Pretty soon Facebook's going to be bigger than any country on earth. And it's everywhere. Ubiquitous is an understatement today, right? It's everywhere. Right? But now we start to see what are some of the complications that this leads to, right? Gartner number, 7% of all network traffic is to Facebook. That's a lot of traffic, right? When we were in Alpart, we just recently did our CGX event in Barcelona, and after I got off the stage, we took a little break, and one of our customers came down to me and said, you know your number when you talked about the percentage of network traffic to Facebook? I said, yeah. He said, I just wanted you to know, just for your own information, that in my company, do you know what the number is? I said, what? He said, 60%. Right? 60% of my traffic is to Facebook. I just wanted you to know that in my world, it's crazy, that 7% number is quite small, right? So this is an average, this is increasing, right? We know everyone's viewing videos at work, right? But half of them are being viewed at work, right? So, let's look at some of the statistics. Again, at the same time, right? Here's that paradox. We need them, right? I say every CEO, no matter where you go in the world today, has 3 key priorities for 2011, right? Number 1 is revenue, number 2 is revenue, number 3 is revenue, right? And applications are contributing to that, right? That's why you see 84% of organizations actually implementing consumer-style web applications for work, right? This stuff is driving business, right? What else is happening? We see the fact that leaders are prepared, actually, they're prepared to have you deal with the risks because of the business benefits. So if you ask most organizations, they know there are risks. Yeah, they probably know. But they're prepared to deal with those and to have IT teams deal with these risks because the potential business benefits are so great. They have to do this, right? So it's a paradox. And this is where we start to see this concept of security as a light switch is another thing of the past. You saw Bill show that screen, I call that the screen from hell, that screen that showed, wasn't telling you anything other than here's an event and it's HTTP and here's an IP address, and you just think, shoot me now, because with all the IP addresses I have to manage, you're kidding me, you're going to show me an IP address and you're telling me it's HTTP. What is that? Is that an application? I have no clue. We need to start visualizing, we need to see this stuff, and we can't have a light switch. It's not about just turning it on, right? So the CEO tells you, turn on Facebook, and you say, great. You flip it on and you walk away and say, oh, I turned it on. I did my job right. Are you safe? No. So we need to turn it on, but we need to control it. So it's not about a light switch, it's now about a dimmer switch. And that dimmer switch needs to be different for this person or that group or that machine or this person or that executive or that team. And you need to be able to turn that down and turn it up, yet turn it on. This is really what you need now to start controlling these things. And we know they're not safe. So, unless we ever wonder why hackers are targeting applications, it's because certainly they're not safe. And as a security company, we're responsible for communicating to all of you when there's a vulnerability, when there are patches, and Microsoft and Adobe patches, and all these other things, right? And we ask ourselves, have we communicated a lot to you lately? Some patches and known vulnerabilities that the guys delivering these web applications are sending us? We say, no, haven't heard from them much at all, right? They've pretty much given up on doing patches. Because if you're one of these guys building applications, what's your objective? Get on the App Store fast. Are you worried about security? You care less, frankly. You need to get in the App Store fast and get to market quick, which means a lot of these applications have a lot of holes and a lot of vulnerabilities. So if you're a hacker, it's exploiting heaven. So we know that, right? And this is, adds to the issue of this, right? Okay, data security. I only have one thing to say about data security, and I say this every time I talk about this issue, this technology area. So data is everywhere, and all the trends that I've talked about, underlying it all, it's like the platform I'm standing on here, is the concern about data security. It's in everything, whether you're virtualizing or running apps or turning on phones, or whatever you're doing. Data security is critical. But I have to say, this is the most disappointing security area of any today that I have seen, can see, do see right now. Right? And you know why? Because we've had DLP solutions now for, 4 or 5 years? And I have yet, and I travel all over the world, I have yet to talk to a company that has said to me, we have a DLP solution, and yes, we can turn it on, and yes, we are proactively using it to stop data loss. Right? No one's turning it on. This stuff is not being used in a way it should, and even if it is, it's being used by only those top-tier companies that have the team, the budget, the resources, the patience, to deploy this kind of technology. Now, don't get me wrong. If I look at DLP technology today, the kind that's been on the market for the last several years, is it good technology? Is it technology you look at it and say, wow, that is some cool stuff? Yes. Do most people respect what's been done in that technology? Yes. But is it being used? No. And it's because, to me, DLP technology, the kind that's been on the market for a while, takes one approach, and that approach is boil the ocean, right? Boil the freaking ocean. Try to do everything. And this is why most organizations, let's see, so we're going to deploy volunteer maybe, right? So we have 6 to 12 months of classification, then we do 6 to 12 months of discovery, and then we deploy the agents, then we deploy the appliances. 2 years later, you ask them, how's it going? And, their head's spinning and saying, I don't know, let me see, I spent all this time classifying and discovering and then doing this. We're thinking of maybe turning it on, but boy, in the 18 to 24 months since we did that discovery and classification, we need to reclassify because data is growing and changing, right? So, why do we need to boil the ocean? I don't know. This is a shame. To me, it's tragic. This is one solution we need to have, we need to turn on, right? I'm the biggest proponent you ever want to talk to about proactive technology. My position is, if anyone has any technology you've purchased, you've deployed and are managing that's not in proactive mode, that's crazy, 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 crazy. We need to turn it on. If you have it and you bought it and you've deployed it, it needs to be turned on. If you don't have it, we need to get it, but it needs to be turned on. And this stuff isn't turned on. And the tragedy is when you start to look at the statistics, right? So you see over 80% of companies that had agreed to a PCI compliant. Yeah. I mean, they didn't have DLP turned on, they didn't have a DLP solution, most all of them, so it's pretty easy to see you're probably not in PCI compliant a lot of the time. But 1 in 5 emails flying out your networks every day has sensitive information. 1 in 5. So I just have to ask, do you see those 1 in 5? Do you know about them? Do you know what's in them or what's happening there? And chances are we don't, right? We know about cost. I mean, it's well over $7 million for an average data breach. These are, going on numbers here. But, if it was as easy as just paying a fine, that might make it a little easy, but it's more complicated than that, right? Gartner number, how will data grow in the next 5 years? And I've been talking about that number for a while, and I still literally can't get my head around it. 650%, right? So you think of all those devices, average user has 4 devices, you're putting data in the cloud, you're virtualizing it, and the data is just everywhere, right? And I just have to say, if we can't get our head around this issue today, 5 years, the data is going to grow 650%. This is an area where we need this technology to be proactive, right? And it's not, it really isn't rocket science. We don't need boil the ocean, right? You know why we don't need boil the ocean? Now, again, I think it's good if someone can deploy a lot of the technology we've had for a while and actually do that and get it up and running. But in the meantime, you know where your data leaks? 3 primary channels that your data leaks. Number 1 is SMTP. Email. Number 2 is HTTP, specifically HTTP email. And you got FTP, right? You have all your media devices, right? This is where 95% of data loss is right there, right? 95%, right? And of that 95%, over 90% of it is accidental, right? It's not intentional, it's not malicious. This is someone either for convenience, hey, I'm going to email this file to my Yahoo or Gmail account, work on it from home. Or I'm going to put it up on a file sharing site, and I'm going to work on it from home. It's not malicious, they're just trying to be more efficient, for God's sake. Or they're going to send an email by accident with one of those 1 in 5, they're going to send that by accident. This is where data loss is occurring. So why is it that today no one has it turned on? And when you ask organizations, do you know about those 1 in 5 emails? Do you at least see those? 95% of your data loss is right there. Can we focus on that? And we can actually, right? That's what we've done. And you can talk, you'll hear about our DLP solution. You should go look at it. I mean, we looked at all these companies too, and everyone else was looking to buy. We looked at them. We decided not to buy them because, our philosophy is very strict. We need to put products on the market that you can put in proactive mode day one. That technology, although we respected it and thought it was quite awesome and what it would do, was never anything that we felt would go in line and be proactive, preventative mode day one. So we built our own. It took a little while, but we do it in a way that focuses on those. It doesn't mean you don't want to use the other solutions, but all I say is, look, while you boil the ocean on one side, let's stop 95% of the data loss on the other, right? Because we need to start doing that, because that's where it's occurring, right? The threat landscape, I follow this like a trend. This is a trend we need to follow as well. And I see this into two big buckets. We look at it really at a high level, right? On one side, we have what we think of today as the threat environment. That the environment that's bigger than the illicit drug trade, in which all these guys are attacking you all the time. This is kind of in the wild threats. These are the big threats you hear about, read about, we've heard about some of them already, right? That's on one side. And those threats, I like to say, 99% of them are pretty much designed and delivered and put in the wild to achieve one of two things. Steal your data or steal your money. Right? And if they steal your data, they'll turn it into money. But there's a difference between some of those that are delivered and deployed and developed to go steal data versus money. Aurora versus Zeus. We'll talk about that right now. Aurora wants your data. It doesn't want you to steal money from you. Zeus wants your bank account information to steal your money. It doesn't want your identification. Right? It doesn't want that. It wants your money. But that's pretty much the threat claim we've seen today. If we look at that, what's happening? Unbelievably sophisticated, multi-vector, polymorphic, absolutely. They're blending everything in the world known to man together and creating some unbelievably sophisticated threats, and they're using social engineering in a big, big way now to start delivering that, right? Let's look at the other side. This is one of the areas of the threat landscape in the plane that is very concerning that I see. This is the explosive growth of cyber warfare, hacktivism that we're seeing, right? And this is undeniably now a major element of the landscape, right? And the thing that's kind of concerning about it is that left-hand side, they are focused on money, right? It's about money, big-time money. It's bigger than the illicit drug trade in money. There's clearinghouses you can go up like eBay and buy all the threats you ever wanted in your life, right? But that other side, it's not really about money. It's about ideology. It's about a political position. It's about making a point. And for that reason, it's kind of particularly dangerous, right? And we're seeing this explode all the time. Things like WikiLeaks, hacktivism. You even see the cyber warfare threats like Stuxnet, that you're going to hear about, I think today or tomorrow. Great session. You're going to love that. So this is kind of the element of the threat plane, which is kind of changing, right? But if you look at the top three threats, here's the top three big ones, of course, Stuxnet. You'll hear about that again, unbelievably sophisticated. This is cyber warfare in the biggest way. Really the U.S. kind of countries are leading this threat that was used to kind of help take down and damage the Iranian nuclear facility, and that's an unbelievably sophisticated threat. We just say now, let's watch it, let's hope it can be contained, because that threat is in the wild. And any hacker that I've ever talked to many, but I can tell you, reading about following them, they pretty much bow down to Stuxnet, right? They think it's like unbelievable. They want to know all about it. They want to reverse engineer it. They think what was done there was off the charts, right? Then you have something like Aurora. This is a classic threat going after your data, right? And this is one we sometimes refer to as a persistent threat, an advanced persistent threat, right? And that's a term you hear a lot, and I just like to say, what does that usually mean? It's pretty simple. The advanced portion means it gets in, right? Gets through. The persistent one is when it gets in, it hangs around for a while, right? It's like the friend that comes for dinner and never leaves. Hangs out there and just mines your data when you don't even know it, right? It's kind of like that spyware was one of the classic kind of persistent threats. And once it got in, it did all kinds of bad things. And Aurora is a classic one, right? This is the one behind, a lot of the data mining things we see with Google and stuff. And Zeus is one of these classic threats that's going after your money, right? It just wants your bank account information. It's incredibly sophisticated. It's the number one financial threat out there. Zeus is the first threat, by the way, that has now moved to mobile. So, we're watching mobile. We've all been waiting for it every year. I think we're going to start seeing more and more threats on mobile. But Zeus is one that has now crossed over. Major threat that has now gone mobile. On attacks, the number of attacks is 80, right, as of the end of the year. So here's where I just say, look, what does this mean? It means one thing. The idea that anyone is using a technology that has been acquired, paid for, is being managed in passive mode, got to get beyond it. You have IPS. I talk to customers today still that have IPS in passive mode. I say, what? That is a mature industry. This stuff is mature. Turn it on, please. Right? Now, if there's a reason you can't turn that on because of the technology, we need to look at that. Right? Technology that's getting delivered that we can't deploy and turn on day one, we need to seriously question that. We have to stop that. So security vendors need to stop. We need to deliver technology that can be proactive day one. We need to show you that you can do that, and you need to turn it on. If you don't have something in mind that's proactive, then we need to get you there. But it's the threat landscape is such where we need to turn this stuff on. Number 7, governance, risk, and compliance. I say, at the end of the day, all roads lead back to ITGRC. I don't need to tell you how many of these you have. There are, international ones, regulatory-based ones, industry-based ones. Now you have local and state data privacy laws, and all these things are like this, right? Do they line up? No. Do they make sense to each other? No. If you have that big white picket fence, with all those disparate solutions, without seamless, it's not seamless, you don't have any visibility. How is it going relative to your audits and your regulatory environment? The answer generally is not too good, right? And so when we see this is concerning, that this is what we see time and time again, right? What's the biggest influencer of your security? It's ITGRC, right? This is where most of the dollars and why a lot of the dollars are getting spent and greenlighting and budgeted at the top level. All roads kind of come back to this. So it matters. The way security is delivered, the way it can be managed and deployed, the visibility you have, the enforcement you have, the reporting you have, matters significantly today to ITGRC now, right? And so this is a real big one. And again, what are some of the other challenges? The ones following, and you just say again, of course, if you have that disparate environment, it's pretty tough to do all of those things. So again, this is another point for unification. Last but not least is cost reduction. It's the second to last. So again, cost reduction is huge. It's massive. I've never seen anybody getting more budget now. You're getting less dollars, fewer dollars. Mark McDonald at Gartner spends his whole time talking to C-level, CFO level, and watching budgets, and he's saying here over 30% dramatic cuts. This is the reality. The fact of the matter is now we need to start doing more with what we have, more with less. And this brings up a big point in security again as well. If your executive team tells all of you, you need to look at what security you have and make it do more for you, not add more, no more capital costs, not, do more, then you look at that security technology and ask the question, how extensible is it? Right? Can I actually have the investment I have made do more for me today? And sadly, most of those point products that have been dished out aren't too extensive. Right? They're very firm, which means you can't extend it. If you ask your vendor, okay, I need now to do IPS in that, or I need now to do data in that. I need that now to manage my virtual environment. I need to virtualize that, whatever. Most of the time the answer is, great, yeah, but I've got to bring in a whole new solution, because that one can't do that, right? Extensibility is huge now, it matters. So the way that we can now extend your solution and say it is now flexible and extensible is critical to doing all the things we need to do. And it's very critical to maximizing your investment in dealing with the fact you have a lot fewer dollars to deal with, right? And green IT is still there. but it's all about saving money, right? So while you guys virtualize, while you do the great things that really focuses on green, then the organization you work with will definitely take those and make the most of the green platform, right? And at the end of the day, it is all about saving money. So here's the to-do list, right? In general, high-level to-do list, and it's pretty daunting, right? Meet IPGRC, make sure you prevent data loss, right? Secure and manage Web 2.0 on those mobile devices, protect against all those attacks, secure the virtual environment. Oh, by the way, cut costs. There's a lot you have to do, right? And this is where your security vendor really is critical. Your security vendor needs to help you do all this stuff, right? And I really don't think too many are truly in a position across all of those to help you do that, especially in a way that's unified, right? So that's really what community security is all about in the end of the day, right? I mean, I'm not here to talk about all the products. I think it's important to look at these trends because they matter. It's important also to look at them, and then you create a prism, and you look through that prism to see how your security vendors do, right? How are they doing to help you enable all these technologies? How are they doing to allow you to do this quickly, to get the visibility you need, to control applications? That dimmer switch, how are they doing there, right? So this is really critical, and I think 3D security in that light is really the way that we want to try to articulate why we do that differently, right? And I think Checkpoint does do that differently than any other security vendor in the world. And it's because we deliver solutions that are truly unified, right? And I will tell you that there is no other security vendor on the planet today that can not only deliver you solutions, because all vendors want to tell you their solutions. They hold up that big sheet and say, here's all my solutions. But the trick question is, are they unified? Did you build those solutions, or did you buy them? And what are they unified? The difference now is that we want to deliver solutions. That's good. That means consolidation and unification. We want to do that. But we want to make sure that you can unify those solutions. Because if they're all disparate in the end, then you've decreased that picket fence a little bit, but it's still disparate, not unified. So we are about a unified solution. We have solutions for next generation firewall. Absolutely, we're the first, by the way, that's been recommended by NSS for next generation firewall. On top of all the things Gil was talking about that we've been moving. We've got virtual solutions, data solutions, Web 2.0 solutions, mobile solutions, endpoint solutions, you name it. And you know what's different about all of that? Is that we're the only vendor on earth that can unify those solutions. And, you know, in closing, I will say the reason that is, the reason I think Checkpoint is now one of the most powerful security companies, exploding security companies in the world, and now is the largest dedicated security company, is because we do actually do it a little bit different. We don't, all those solutions we talk about, we didn't go out and buy all those things. We buy technology, but we tend to buy it very smartly and very specifically, and we integrate it quickly. We organically build most of the solutions we have. And because of that, we unify them right from the start, right? So one pane of glass is unified for all of those things, visibility throughout, identity awareness, a dimmer switch so you can control all these things. Reporting and compliance because it's unified now. These are things that are very truly different. So it's through that prism, it's in that kind of light that I hope you will take in the rest of the information here at this conference. Go look at these solutions for yourself. Touch and feel them, right? See what we have and think about the differences we have there. So I hope you have a great conference. I appreciate your time. I'm happy that I could have this little chat with you all, and have a great conference. We'll see you next time.